The axolotl, native to the ancient lake system near Mexico City, has mastered something that has eluded every other vertebrate on the planet. This perpetually grinning amphibian has discovered the secret to eternal youth, and it's not what you might expect. Most salamanders follow a predictable life cycle. They start as aquatic larvae with external gills, then undergo metamorphosis to become terrestrial adults with lungs and the ability to live on land. The axolotl looked at this process and simply said no. Through a condition called neoteny, it reaches sexual maturity while retaining all of its juvenile characteristics. It never loses its feathery external gills, never develops lungs, and never leaves the water. It's essentially a teenager that decided to stay in the family pool forever and somehow made it work. But the axolotl's rejection of adulthood is just the beginning of its rule-breaking behavior. This creature has developed regenerative abilities that make every other healing factor in the animal kingdom look primitive by comparison. When an axolotl loses a limb, it doesn't just grow back a simple replacement. It reconstructs the missing body part with perfect precision, complete with bones, muscles, nerves, and blood vessels. The regenerated limb is functionally identical to the original, with no scarring or loss of capability. This isn't limited to limbs either. Axolotls can regenerate portions of their spinal cord, damaged heart tissue, and even parts of their brain. No other vertebrate on Earth can repair central nervous system damage the way these creatures can. They maintain massive populations of stem cells throughout their entire lives, ready to deploy these master cells whenever injury occurs. When damage happens, these cells swarm to the site and form a structure called a blastema, essentially a biological construction site where the missing tissue is rebuilt from scratch. Scientists studying this process have discovered that axolotls possess genetic mechanisms that most vertebrates lose during development. While other animals trade regenerative ability for the complexity that comes with maturation, axolotls found a way to keep both. They've essentially hacked the aging process, maintaining the cellular flexibility of youth while achieving the reproductive capability of adulthood. The implications of understanding axolotl regeneration could revolutionize human medicine. Researchers are desperately trying to decode the molecular signals that trigger their healing response, hoping to one day activate similar capabilities in human patients. Imagine a world where spinal cord injuries could be repaired, where heart damage could be reversed, where the cellular blueprint for perfect healing could be unlocked in our own bodies. Interestingly, you can force an axolotl to undergo metamorphosis by injecting it with thyroid hormones or iodine. The creature will reluctantly absorb its gills, develop lungs, and transform into a terrestrial salamander. But this forced maturation comes at a terrible cost. The metamorphosed axolotl loses its remarkable regenerative abilities, and its lifespan is dramatically shortened. It seems these creatures understand something we don't about the relationship between aging and healing. By refusing to grow up, they've preserved abilities that the rest of the vertebrate world gave up long ago. Moving from the lakes of Mexico to the streams of Australia and Tasmania, we encounter another creature that broke fundamental rules about what mammals are supposed to be. The platypus is evolution's practical joke, a biological impossibility that had early European scientists convinced they were looking at an elaborate hoax. When the first platypus specimen arrived in Britain in 1799, naturalists literally tried to pry off what they assumed was a duck bill sewn onto a beaver body. They searched for stitches, certain that someone was playing an elaborate prank on the scientific community. But the platypus was real, and it violated every assumption about mammalian biology. This creature combines features that have no business existing on the same animal. It has the bill and webbed feet of a waterfowl, the dense fur and body shape of an otter, and the flat tail of a beaver. But the contradictions run much deeper than surface appearance. The platypus lays eggs like a reptile, but produces milk for its young like a mammal. It's one of only 2 venomous mammals in the world, with hollow spurs on the male's hind legs that can inject excruciating toxin into potential threats. The platypus bill isn't just for show either. This soft, rubbery appendage is covered in thousands of electroreceptors that can detect the tiny electrical fields generated by muscle contractions in other animals. When hunting underwater, the platypus closes its eyes, ears, and nostrils completely. It navigates and locates prey using only electroreception, essentially turning itself into a living metal detector for aquatic invertebrates. Even reproduction in platypuses defies mammalian norms. Females lay small, leathery eggs in riverbank burrows and incubate them with their body heat. When the tiny, underdeveloped young hatch, they need milk to survive. But platypuses have no nipples. Instead, the female secretes milk through pores in her skin, and it pools in grooves on her belly for the babies to lap up. She literally sweats milk for her offspring. The genetic analysis of platypuses revealed just how thoroughly they broke evolutionary rules. Their genome is a bizarre mosaic of mammalian, reptilian, and bird-like genes. They have genes for egg-laying like chickens and genes for milk production like cows. Most remarkably, they have 10 sex chromosomes instead of the standard 2 found in most mammals. During cell division, these chromosomes form complex chains that have more in common with plant reproduction than with other mammals. The platypus represents a living window into ancient evolutionary history. It's a monotreme, part of a lineage that split from other mammals over 160 million years ago. While the rest of the mammalian world moved toward live birth and conventional reproductive strategies, monotremes preserved egg-laying and developed their own unique solutions to survival challenges. Our next rule breaker takes us into the crushing darkness of the deep ocean, where pressure and scarcity have created one of the most extreme solutions to the problem of finding food and mates. The anglerfish has evolved into something that seems more like a creature from a horror movie than a real animal. Yet its bizarre adaptations represent perfect solutions to life in the abyss. The female anglerfish is immediately recognizable by the bioluminescent lure that dangles from a modified spine above her enormous mouth. This isn't just a simple light, but a sophisticated biological system. The illumination comes from colonies of symbiotic bacteria living inside the lure. The fish provides these bacteria with nutrients and protection, while they provide a constant, controllable glow that the anglerfish uses as a hunting tool. In the food-scarce environment of the deep sea, this lure is incredibly effective. The anglerfish can pulse the light or wave it around to mimic the movements of small prey, attracting curious fish and crustaceans. When a victim comes to investigate, the anglerfish's massive mouth, filled with long, needle-sharp teeth pointing inward, snaps shut with lightning speed. Escape is impossible once those jaws close. But the truly mind-bending aspect of anglerfish biology involves their reproductive strategy. In the vast darkness of the deep ocean, finding a mate is an almost insurmountable challenge. The anglerfish solved this problem with one of the most extreme examples of sexual dimorphism in the animal kingdom. While females can grow to several feet in length, males are tiny creatures, often less than an inch long. The male's entire existence revolves around one goal: finding a female. He has oversized eyes to spot the faint glow of a female's lure and enhanced chemical sensors to track her pheromones through the water. When a male finally locates a female, the truly extraordinary part begins. He bites onto her body with his sharp teeth, and then something unprecedented in vertebrate biology occurs. His tissues begin to physically fuse with hers. His skin and blood vessels merge with the female's circulatory system. He gradually loses his eyes, fins, and most of his internal organs, becoming essentially a living sperm bank permanently attached to the female's body. This process, called sexual parasitism, transforms the male into nothing more than a reproductive organ that the female can use whenever she's ready to spawn. A single female can have multiple males attached to her body, ensuring constant access to genetic material for reproduction. It's a brutal but effective solution to the challenge of maintaining species continuity in an environment where individuals might never encounter each other again. The anglerfish proves that when environmental pressures are extreme enough, evolution will find solutions that seem to violate basic principles of animal behavior and biology. In the crushing darkness of the deep sea, traditional approaches to reproduction simply don't work. The anglerfish adapted by fundamentally redefining what it means to be male and female, creating a system that ensures reproductive success no matter how isolated individuals become. These first three creatures demonstrate just how thoroughly life can break the rules we thought were unbreakable. From the axolotl's refusal to age, to the platypus's genetic impossibility, to the anglerfish's redefinition of reproduction itself, each species represents a fundamental challenge to our understanding of biological limitations. But we're just getting started with nature's rule breakers. Our next evolutionary rebel takes us into the microscopic realm, where size means nothing and survival means everything. Meet the tardigrade, a creature so impossibly resilient that it makes every other survivor in the animal kingdom look like they're made of tissue paper. These 8-legged microscopic bears, no bigger than a grain of sand, have achieved something that borders on biological immortality. Not through regeneration like the axolotl, but through a survival strategy so extreme it defies every known limit of life itself. Tardigrades can survive conditions that would instantly annihilate virtually every other living thing on Earth. We're talking about creatures that can endure the vacuum of outer space. In 2007, scientists literally sent tardigrades into orbit, exposed them to the lethal radiation and airless void of space for 10 days, then brought them back to Earth. Not only did many survive this cosmic ordeal, they went on to reproduce successfully afterward. They remain the only known animals to have survived direct exposure to the harsh environment of space. But space survival is just the beginning of their impossibilities. These microscopic marvels can withstand temperatures that would flash freeze or instantly vaporize other organisms. They survive near absolute zero and temperatures exceeding the boiling point of water. They endure pressures 6 times greater than those found in the deepest ocean trenches. They can absorb radiation doses hundreds of times what would kill a human being. Most remarkably, they can survive complete dehydration for decades, essentially existing in a state of suspended animation until conditions improve. The secret to this incredible resilience lies in a process called cryptobiosis. When faced with lethal environmental conditions, tardigrades don't fight back or flee. Instead, they essentially shut down. They retract their legs, curl into a desiccated ball called a ton, and reduce their metabolic activity to less than 1% of normal levels. In this state, they replace the water in their cells with protective proteins and sugars that form a glass-like matrix, preventing cellular damage during extreme stress. This isn't hibernation or dormancy in any conventional sense. Tardigrades in cryptobiosis exist in a state so close to death that distinguishing between the two becomes almost philosophical. Yet when favorable conditions return, even after 30 years of suspended animation, they simply rehydrate and resume normal activity as if nothing happened. They've essentially solved the problem of mortality by learning how to pause their own existence. What makes this even more extraordinary is that tardigrades accomplish this feat through proteins that exist nowhere else in nature. These tardigrade-specific proteins can protect DNA from radiation damage and maintain cellular integrity under conditions that would destroy other organisms at the molecular level. Scientists have successfully transplanted some of these proteins into human cells, making them significantly more resistant to radiation damage. The tardigrade proves that the most effective survival strategy isn't always about being bigger, stronger, or faster. Sometimes it's about knowing when to simply stop existing until the universe becomes more hospitable. They've mastered the art of biological patience on a cosmic scale. From the microscopic to the massive, our next rule breaker inhabits the crushing depths of the ocean, where it has evolved into something that perfectly embodies the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover." The blobfish has become internet famous as the world's ugliest animal, but this reputation represents one of the most profound misunderstandings in popular biology. The droopy, gelatinous mass that became a global meme isn't what a blobfish actually looks like. It's what happens when you rip a deep-sea creature from its high-pressure environment and drag it to the surface. The iconic photograph that launched 1,000 memes is essentially a picture of a creature suffering from catastrophic decompression, not a representation of how it appears in its natural habitat, in the depths where blobfish actually live. Between 2,000 and 4,000 feet below the surface, these creatures are perfectly adapted predators. The pressure at those depths is 60 to 120 times greater than at sea level. To survive, blobfish have evolved bodies with minimal muscle mass and skeletons made of soft, flexible cartilage. Their flesh consists primarily of a gelatinous substance, with a density slightly less than water, allowing them to hover effortlessly just above the seafloor without expending energy on swimming. This adaptation represents a brilliant solution to life in a food-scarce environment. Rather than actively hunting, blobfish simply float in place, waiting for edible creatures to drift within range of their mouths. It's an incredibly energy-efficient lifestyle, perfectly suited to the deep ocean's limited resources. When deep-sea fishing operations accidentally capture blobfish and haul them to the surface, the dramatic pressure change causes their gelatinous tissues to expand and decompress. Their bodies collapse into the sad, droopy caricature we recognize from internet memes. That famous image isn't showing us an ugly animal. It's showing us the corpse of a creature that died from explosive decompression. What makes this even more tragic is that blobfish are actually dedicated parents. Females lay thousands of pink eggs on the seafloor and then hover over them for weeks, guarding against predators and keeping the eggs clean until they hatch. This level of parental investment is rare among deep-sea fish, representing a significant energy expenditure in an environment where every calorie matters. The blobfish teaches us a crucial lesson about perspective and judgment. Their supposed ugliness exists only in our world, not theirs. In their natural environment, they're perfectly formed creatures living successful lives in one of Earth's most challenging habitats. Their transformation into an internet joke reflects our own limitations in understanding life forms adapted to environments radically different from our own. Our next evolutionary outlaw has developed weaponry that seems more appropriate for a science fiction movie than the coral reefs where it actually lives. The pistol shrimp, despite being only an inch or two long, possesses one of the most powerful and physically impossible weapons in the animal kingdom. This tiny crustacean has one normal-sized claw and one grotesquely oversized claw that functions like a biological gun. When the pistol shrimp snaps this enlarged claw shut, it creates effects that violate everything we thought we knew about the physical limitations of biological systems. The snap produces a sound louder than a jet engine and generates temperatures that rival the surface of the sun. The physics involved in this process border on the supernatural. When the shrimp rapidly closes its oversized claw, it creates a high-velocity jet of water that moves so fast it causes cavitation. The water jet's wake has such low pressure that it forms a bubble containing water vapor. This cavitation bubble then collapses with tremendous violence, creating a shock wave that produces multiple impossible effects simultaneously. For a split nanosecond, the temperature inside the collapsing bubble reaches over 8,000 degrees Fahrenheit, nearly matching the surface temperature of our sun. This collapse also produces a flash of light through a phenomenon called sonoluminescence and generates a sound that can reach 220 decibels. To put this in perspective, a gunshot typically measures around 150 decibels. The shockwave from this biological weapon can instantly stun or kill small fish and crustaceans, which the shrimp then collects as easy prey. This creature hunts using a combination of plasma physics, light generation, and acoustic warfare, all produced by rapidly closing a single claw. The sound production is so intense that colonies of pistol shrimp can interfere with submarine sonar systems, creating a constant crackling background noise that sounds like bacon frying. For decades, naval forces were puzzled by this acoustic interference until they traced it back to these tiny superweapons living on the seafloor. Even more remarkably, pistol shrimp can regenerate their weapons. If the enlarged snapper claw is lost to injury, the smaller claw will grow into a fully functional replacement, while the damaged limb regenerates as the new smaller claw. They can literally switch their gun hand and continue hunting without missing a beat. The pistol shrimp proves that raw power isn't determined by size, but by understanding physical principles that most creatures never discover. This tiny crustacean has mastered fluid dynamics to create a weapon system that harnesses some of the most extreme physics on Earth. Moving from the ocean depths to the rainforests of Central and South America, we encounter a creature that has achieved something that seems to violate the basic principles of anatomy. Glass frogs have evolved transparency that turns their bodies into living windows, allowing observers to see their internal organs functioning in real time. From above, these small tree frogs appear unremarkable, displaying the typical lime green coloration of many rainforest species. But flip one over, and you're treated to one of nature's most extraordinary displays. The skin on their bellies is completely transparent, providing a clear view of their beating hearts, flowing blood, digestive systems, and developing eggs. This transparency isn't just a curious anomaly, it represents a sophisticated camouflage strategy called edge diffusion. When a glass frog rests on a leaf, light passes through its transparent belly, helping to blur the creature's outline and making it much harder for predators to detect. The frog essentially becomes one with its environment, not by matching colours, but by becoming partially invisible. The reproductive behaviour of glass frogs demonstrates how transparency serves multiple biological functions. After mating, females lay their eggs on leaves overhanging streams. The male then assumes the role of dedicated guardian, protecting the eggs for weeks while they develop. His most crucial task involves keeping the eggs properly hydrated, since desiccation means death for the developing embryos. The transparent father will periodically leave his post to soak himself in the stream below, then return to sit on the eggs, transferring moisture from his body to keep them viable. Some species take this even further, with males urinating on their eggs to provide additional hydration. It's a remarkable example of parental dedication facilitated by the very transparency that makes these creatures so unique. When the tadpoles are ready to hatch, they drop from their leaf nursery into the stream below, where they'll continue their aquatic development before eventually returning to the trees as adults. This entire life cycle depends on the delicate balance between terrestrial and aquatic environments that glass frogs have mastered. The glass frog challenges our assumptions about what skin is supposed to do. Rather than serving solely as a protective barrier, their skin has become a window that serves both defensive and reproductive functions. They've turned transparency from a vulnerability into an evolutionary advantage. Our next rule breaker has achieved something that every living thing on Earth should find impossible: biological immortality. Turritopsis dohrnii, commonly known as the immortal jellyfish, has discovered a loophole in the aging process that allows it to theoretically live forever. This tiny jellyfish, no bigger than a pinky nail, follows a normal life cycle until something extraordinary happens. Like other jellyfish, it starts as a fertilized egg, develops into a larva, settles on the sea floor as a polyp, and eventually buds off into a free-swimming adult jellyfish. But here's where Turritopsis dohrnii breaks the fundamental rule of mortality. When this creature faces stress, injury, starvation, or old age, it doesn't die. Instead, it reverses its entire life cycle. The adult jellyfish sinks to the ocean floor, and its bell and tentacles begin to regress and absorb back into its body. The creature transforms back into a polyp, essentially becoming juvenile again. From this rejuvenated polyp stage, new jellyfish will eventually bud off, each one genetically identical to the original adult. This process, called transdifferentiation, involves mature specialized cells transforming into completely different types of specialized cells. It's like a butterfly somehow turning back into a caterpillar, then metamorphosing again into a new butterfly. The immortal jellyfish has mastered cellular reprogramming on a scale that makes stem cell research look primitive. This doesn't make these jellyfish truly invulnerable. They can still be eaten by predators or succumb to diseases that kill them before they can undergo their transformation. But they will never die of old age or cellular deterioration. They possess a biological reset button that can restore them to their juvenile state whenever life becomes too challenging. The discovery of this immortality mechanism has revolutionized aging research and cancer studies. Scientists are desperately trying to understand how these creatures maintain genetic integrity through countless cycles of rebirth without developing the cellular mutations that typically accompany such dramatic transformations. The immortal jellyfish floats through our oceans as a living testament to the possibility that death might not be as inevitable as we assumed. It represents the ultimate victory over time itself, achieved not through strength or intelligence, but through the profound biological humility of being willing to start over whenever necessary. These creatures prove that evolution's creativity extends far beyond what we consider possible. Each one has found a unique way to break rules we thought were fundamental to life itself, showing us that nature's solutions to survival challenges are limited only by our own imagination and understanding. Our seventh evolutionary rebel forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about mammalian anatomy and defensive strategies. The pangolin appears to be nature's experiment in combining a mammal with medieval armor, creating something that looks more like a walking pine cone than a traditional animal. These remarkable creatures are the only mammals on Earth covered in large overlapping scales made of keratin, the same material found in our fingernails and rhinoceros horns. But these aren't decorative features. They form a sophisticated defensive system that transforms the pangolin into an impenetrable fortress when danger approaches. When threatened, a pangolin performs one of the most effective defensive maneuvers in the animal kingdom. It curls into a tight ball with its razor-sharp scales locked together, protecting its soft belly and vulnerable areas from even the most determined predators. Lions, tigers, and other apex hunters find themselves completely stymied by this simple yet brilliant strategy. The pangolin essentially becomes a living shield that can wait out any attack, but the pangolin's rule-breaking extends far beyond its armor. This creature has eliminated teeth entirely from its anatomy, replacing them with something far more extraordinary. The pangolin possesses a tongue that defies every principle of mammalian proportions. This incredible appendage can extend longer than the animal's entire body, and when not in use, it doesn't coil up in the mouth like you might expect. Instead, the pangolin's tongue retracts into a specialized sheath that extends deep into its chest cavity, anchoring near the pelvis. When deployed for feeding, this remarkable organ flicks in and out at incredible speed, coated with sticky saliva that traps thousands of ants and termites. A single pangolin can consume up to 20 million insects per year, making it one of the most effective natural pest control systems on the planet. The engineering required for this tongue system breaks conventional rules about how mammalian anatomy should work. The muscular and skeletal modifications needed to accommodate such an oversized organ represent evolutionary innovations found nowhere else in the mammalian world. The pangolin essentially redesigned its entire internal architecture around this one specialized feeding tool. Their reproductive behavior showcases another endearing rule break from typical mammalian parenting. Mother pangolins carry their babies, called pangapups, on the base of their tails as they move through their territory. When danger threatens, The mother can roll into her defensive ball with the pup safely tucked inside, creating a mobile fortress that protects both generations simultaneously. Tragically, the pangolin's unique adaptations have made it the most trafficked mammal on Earth. The very scales that protect it from natural predators make it vulnerable to human exploitation, as these remarkable defensive structures are falsely believed to possess medicinal properties in some traditional practices. Our eighth evolutionary outlaw takes us back to the oceans, but this time to encounter a creature that has mastered the art of acoustic warfare on a scale that seems to violate the laws of physics. Despite being smaller than many house pets, certain whale species have developed communication abilities that demonstrate just how thoroughly evolution can break the rules of sound transmission. Blue whales, the largest animals ever to exist on Earth, produce calls that can travel across entire ocean basins. These vocalizations operate at frequencies so low they're below the range of human hearing, yet they carry enough power to be detected by other whales thousands of miles away. The sound production system required for this feat represents biological engineering on a scale that challenges our understanding of what living tissues can accomplish. The whale's larynx has been completely restructured to function as a biological amplifier capable of generating sounds that reach 180 decibels. To put this in perspective, a jet engine produces around 140 decibels. These creatures are essentially living concert speakers that can broadcast their songs across continents of water. But the truly rule-breaking aspect involves how whales have learned to exploit the ocean's acoustic properties. They direct their calls into specific layers of seawater where temperature and pressure create natural sound channels. These deep sound channels, called SOFAR layers, act like underwater highways for whale communication, allowing their voices to travel with minimal energy loss across vast distances. This represents a level of acoustic engineering that humans didn't discover until the development of modern sonar systems. Whales have been using the ocean's natural acoustics to maintain social connections across impossible distances for millions of years, essentially turning the entire ocean into their communication network. Some whale species have developed even more sophisticated acoustic abilities. Sperm whales use echolocation calls so powerful they can stun squid at close range, essentially weaponizing sound for hunting. Their massive heads contain specialized organs that focus sound energy like biological acoustic lenses, creating hunting tools that operate on principles similar to military sonar systems. The complexity of whale communication continues to reveal rule-breaking capabilities. Recent research has discovered that different whale populations have distinct dialects, cultural variations in their calls that are passed down through generations. They're not just making noise, they're maintaining complex social traditions through acoustic means across ocean basins. Moving from the vast oceans to the dense rainforests, we encounter our ninth evolutionary rebel, a creature that has mastered the art of acoustic mimicry to such an extraordinary degree that it challenges our understanding of learning, memory, and artistic expression in the animal kingdom. The lyrebird of Australia possesses vocal abilities that border on the supernatural. This ground-dwelling bird can perfectly replicate virtually any sound it encounters, from the calls of dozens of other bird species to the mechanical noises of human machinery. But this isn't simple mimicry. It's acoustic artistry of staggering complexity and precision. Male lyrebirds use their incredible vocal range for one primary purpose: creating elaborate courtship performances that showcase their acoustic mastery. During mating season, a male will clear a performance area on the forest floor, fan out his magnificent tail feathers into the lyre shape that gives the species its name, and begin a concert that can last for hours. What makes this performance truly rule-breaking is the sophistication of the sound manipulation involved. A lyrebird can simultaneously produce multiple different calls, layering sounds on top of each other to create complex acoustic compositions. It might weave together the territorial call of a kookaburra the engine noise of a distant chainsaw, and the alarm calls of a flock of parrots into a seamless musical narrative. The accuracy of these reproductions defies explanation. Lyrebirds can replicate camera shutter sounds, car alarms, construction equipment, and even human speech with such precision that the copies are virtually indistinguishable from the originals. They're essentially biological recording devices with the ability to edit and remix their stored sounds into new compositions. This ability represents a form of cultural transmission that breaks conventional rules about animal communication. Young male lyrebirds learn their repertoires from older, more experienced performers, meaning different populations develop distinct acoustic traditions. The sounds incorporated into their performances reflect the specific acoustic environment of their territory, creating living audio maps of their local ecosystems. Recent studies have revealed that lyrebirds living near construction sites incorporate machinery sounds into their songs, while those in remote wilderness areas focus on natural sounds. They're constantly updating their acoustic libraries, adding new sounds they encounter, and incorporating them into their existing repertoires. The neurological capabilities required for this level of vocal control represent evolutionary innovations found nowhere else in the bird world. The lyrebird's brain has dedicated regions for sound processing and reproduction that are proportionally larger and more complex than those found in any other songbird species. Our final evolutionary outlaw brings us to perhaps the most profound rule-breaking discovery in modern biology. This creature has achieved something that challenges the very foundations of how we understand reproduction, gender, and biological identity in the animal kingdom. Certain species of whiptail lizards have accomplished something that should be biologically impossible. They've eliminated males from their species entirely. These all-female populations reproduce through parthenogenesis, essentially cloning themselves to produce offspring that are genetically identical to their mothers. But the rule-breaking doesn't stop there. Despite being an all-female species, these lizards still engage in mating behaviors. Individuals take turns playing male and female roles in elaborate courtship rituals that are necessary to trigger ovulation and egg production. They've maintained the behavioral patterns of sexual reproduction while eliminating the genetic diversity that typically makes sexual reproduction advantageous. This represents a fundamental challenge to evolutionary theory. Sexual reproduction is supposed to be favored by natural selection because it creates genetic diversity that helps populations adapt to changing environments. Asexual reproduction, while more efficient, typically leads to evolutionary dead ends because cloned populations can't adapt to new challenges. Yet these whiptail lizards have thrived for thousands of years using this seemingly impossible reproductive strategy. They've found a way to maintain the behavioral benefits of sexual interaction while achieving the efficiency of asexual reproduction. It's like having the best of both reproductive worlds without the costs typically associated with either strategy. The mechanism behind this reproduction involves complex genetic manipulations that occur during egg development. The lizards have essentially reprogrammed their cellular machinery to bypass the need for male genetic contribution, while maintaining the hormonal and behavioral systems that regulate reproduction. Recent genetic analysis has revealed that these all-female species actually originated from hybridization events between different whiptail species. The genetic shock of hybridization somehow triggered the switch to parthenogenesis, creating entirely new species that reproduce in ways that shouldn't work according to conventional evolutionary theory. These lizards represent living proof that evolution's creativity extends even to fundamental biological processes we assumed were unchangeable. They've rewritten the rules of reproduction itself, creating sustainable populations that challenge our understanding of what's possible in the natural world. From the microscopic tardigrade's cosmic resilience to the whiptail lizard's reproduction revolution, each of these evolutionary outlaws demonstrates that life's solutions to survival challenges are far more creative and flexible than we ever imagined. They've broken rules we thought were unbreakable, violated principles we assumed were fundamental, and achieved impossibilities that force us to expand our understanding of what life can accomplish. These creatures remind us that evolution isn't just about gradual change and incremental improvement. Sometimes it produces radical innovations that completely redefine what's possible for living organisms. They prove that the boundaries of biology are far more fluid than we realized, and that nature's capacity for creative problem-solving continues to surprise and humble us. These 10 evolutionary rebels represent more than just biological curiosities or amusing anomalies in nature's grand design. They're living proof that the universe operates according to principles far stranger and more flexible than our current scientific understanding can fully grasp. Each creature we've examined has discovered loopholes in what we assumed were the ironclad laws governing life on Earth. What unites these rule breakers isn't their specific adaptations, but their willingness to abandon conventional biological strategies entirely. The axolotl rejected maturity to preserve regenerative immortality. The platypus combined impossible features into a single functioning organism. The anglerfish redefined reproduction through parasitic fusion. The tardigrade mastered suspended animation to survive cosmic extremes. Each solution represents a fundamental departure from established evolutionary pathways. The implications extend far beyond academic curiosity. These creatures are walking laboratories containing secrets that could revolutionize human medicine, materials science, and our understanding of consciousness itself. The axolotl's regenerative mechanisms might unlock treatments for spinal cord injuries and heart disease. The tardigrade's survival proteins could protect astronauts during deep space missions. The pistol shrimp's cavitation bubble technology might inspire new forms of underwater propulsion or industrial applications. Perhaps most importantly, these evolutionary outlaws force us to confront the limitations of human knowledge. Every time we think we've discovered the boundaries of what's possible in biology, nature produces something that shatters those assumptions completely. The glass frog's transparency, the whale's acoustic engineering, the lyrebird's sonic artistry, and the whiptail lizard's reproductive revolution all demonstrate that life's creative potential operates on scales we're only beginning to comprehend. These creatures exist as living reminders that the natural world contains solutions to problems we haven't even learned how to ask yet. They've broken the rules not through rebellion, but through discovering that the rules themselves were incomplete descriptions of reality's true possibilities. In a universe where tiny shrimp can create temperatures matching stellar surfaces and microscopic bears can survive the vacuum of space, perhaps the only real rule is that there are no rules at all. The evolutionary outlaws we've encountered today prove that nature's imagination exceeds our own by orders of magnitude. They challenge us to approach the living world with greater humility, deeper curiosity, and an appreciation for the profound mysteries that surround us. In their impossible existence, we find evidence that reality itself might be far stranger, more wonderful, and more flexible than we ever dared to believe possible. These 10 evolutionary rebels represent more than just biological curiosities scattered across our planet's diverse ecosystems. They're living proof that the fundamental laws we thought governed all life on Earth are merely suggestions that nature occasionally chooses to ignore. Each creature we have explored has discovered its own unique method of breaking what scientists assumed were unbreakable biological principles. From the axolotl's eternal youth to the immortal jellyfish's time reversal abilities, from the tardigrade's cosmic resilience to the pistol shrimp's physics-defying weaponry, these animals have rewritten the very definition of what's possible for living organisms. They've shown us that evolution's creativity operates on scales we're only beginning to comprehend, producing solutions so radical they challenge our most basic assumptions about biology itself. Perhaps most remarkably, these rule breakers continue to reveal new secrets about their impossible abilities. Scientists studying their extraordinary adaptations are discovering potential applications that could revolutionize human medicine, materials engineering, and our understanding of life's fundamental processes. The regenerative mechanisms of axolotls might one day heal spinal cord injuries. The survival proteins of tardigrades could protect astronauts during interstellar journeys. The acoustic mastery of whales and lyrebirds might inspire new forms of communication technology. These evolutionary outlaws remind us that in a universe where microscopic creatures can survive the vacuum of space and tiny shrimp can create temperatures matching the surface of the sun, the only certainty is that nature's imagination far exceeds our own. They prove that the boundaries of biology are far more fluid than we realized, and that life's capacity for creative problem-solving continues to surprise and humble us at every turn. In their impossible existence, we find hope that the natural world still contains countless mysteries waiting to be discovered, solutions to problems we haven't even learned to ask, and evidence that reality itself might be far stranger and more wonderful than we ever dared to believe possible.